All right, everybody. Hello. I am just trying to get Instagram to connect because, of course, it's going to be some sort of way because it's Instagram. I hope everyone is doing all right this evening or morning. For Inna, it's morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just starting her day. Yeah, I'm just waiting. If you are here, though, feel free to say hello and let us know that you're here and that you're watching. And as we're talking, you can definitely go ahead and put some questions in the comments, and I will try to get to them probably more towards the end. All right, it's now asking for stuff. I don't know. It's been one of those days. Like, I went to the store and I was trying to check out, and the cash register froze. So she went to a different one, and then that one froze. So it's been that kind of day. Like, me and tech we're not been lovely here. Oh, yay, I'm getting a blue ring. We're almost there. We're so close. Good. Okay. All right. So, everybody, Jen here from Stardust Wander Tarot, and today we are talking with the magical Inna Segal, and she's coming to us from Australia, and she has written tons of books, speaking, everything you can think of. She's like serious pro in all things spiritual matters, and I'm so honored to have her here today. So, why don't you tell a bit about yourself?
Hi, Jen. Lovely to be on your show. So I teach people how to really, transform their lives by understanding both their intuitive, internal, and spiritual nature, and using the different skills and aspects of their own selves to both grow and heal and transform and essentially, live their life soulfully, live their life fully. Yeah. So that's kind of my big thing.
Just kind of what you do, huh? No big deal, just changing lives. Fine. No, I love that. And and I think too, it's something that is so needed right now. I just, social media obviously is a great thing because we get to do this, right? But it's also, I think, in a way, desensitizing people, and it's kind of they're losing themselves, right? So I think that it's so important for people like you to be out there showing, everybody that you can do this, and it is all within you. And you have a book coming out, and it should be released later for you later this month. We're not, but it's in end of June, right?
Actually, for us, and I've got the book here. It'll be released in about a week.
So, all right. So sooner than that. Awesome. And that's Understanding Modern Spirituality. And my physical version, I was just telling you, didn't get here in time. So I had it, I had like the eGalley version. So I was able to upload it to my Kindle, which was really cool. And it's beautiful. I love all the graphics in it and just the color of it. It's so pretty. Do you love it?
I do. I was so impressed by my publisher. Like, they're actually one of the most wonderful publishers. They just make sure that everything is done at the highest level, and and that the author really gets involved. Not involved so much in the graphics, but they always ask questions. They always ask for feedback, and they just make it look so beautiful and pretty. So yeah, when I first got it, I was like, oh my God, this is
yeah, that's so amazing. I love that. Yeah, and so it is published by Rockpool, and you can pre-order it now if you want as well. But it's going to be on sale soon too. And Rockpool, I absolutely adore Rockpool. They spoil me. They send me all the things, and then I get to talk to all of their wonderful authors. So I absolutely adore all of them. So now, what was your inspiration to write this book? Because it's a pretty big subject. So what kind of made you, hey, I need to write a book about this?
Look, I think it was really an experience that I had then when I started doing healing work and delving into understanding as much spiritual wisdom as I could. I was extremely young, so I probably started in my teenage years, to be honest.
Okay.
And then by the time I was 23, I was kind of like, is there anything else? Is there anything new out there? Because I just feel like everything that I'm reading is repeating itself. And I just feel like I need more. And to be honest, by the time I was 30, I had this sense like I had this kind of hat on my, crown, on my crown chakra, on my head,
Yeah.
that, and it was almost like I'm feeling uninspired, and I'm feeling like, everything I'm hearing, I've heard a million times before,
Right.
and mainly positive type thinking. And I just want something deeper, and I want something more, and I want something new. And I was really fortunate that at that point I met some people who had kind of studied a lot of ancient knowledge that was very connected to mystery schools and mystical type of knowledge. And I was like, oh my God, this is really different to the things that I've been exposed to and I was hearing. And so I have to say, at the beginning, I had a lot of resistance, and I was like, oh, this is really, hard books to read, really
Right.
complex, and, old.
They
And
are. Yeah, the wording in them too. It takes a minute to like get used to that for sure.
exactly, like really, really challenging. And so I actually had a lot of resistance, and I kind of pushed it away. But at the same time, I had been to this woman's house who had been talking about this. And to be honest, it was kind of like energetically the cleanest, purest house I'd ever been to. And it made a lot of she made an impression on me, and the house did. And I was like, I want to know more. And so she kind of said, look, I have these study groups and I teach, do you want to come and explore? And, with lots of resistance, I did.
I love that you keep saying that, because that is such a thing. And people try to be like, that doesn't exist, and it's a thing. So I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Yeah, because, she kind of basically told me that everything I had been studying and teaching at that stage, which would have been around, 14, 15 years, was a little bit off, and so I wasn't, excited about that part, but at the same time, there was something I felt in my heart that was awakened, and I was really curious. And so I started looking at the books that she had given me, and and again, they were over 100 years old, and studying, coming to see her several times a week for different courses, and also just discussions and one-on-one. And the more I learned, the more I started to feel this sense of awakeness and aliveness, and like this hat that I had been, that it was on my head was coming off. And I was just delving really deep into information that had never been accessible to me, and asking questions that I'd never even considered to ask. And the more and I felt like, for me, I was really taking that information in quite slowly, because it was so complex and in some ways just layered, or in many ways. And then I started, to be honest, sharing it on Facebook, and I thought, look, I'm going to get really negative feedback because it's not very easy to understand, and it's kind of coming from, like I said, this older, very mystical, very different, I should say, very
Right,
different
right. Yeah, from the
perspective.
norm, right.
And so I was expecting this, massive kind of resistance as well, and you know, and it
Right.
was a little bit, but
Okay.
majority of people were really curious and excited, and they were like, I want to know more, give me more. And it was a lot to do with spiritual worlds and
Mhm.
and going beyond how we usually think and understanding higher beings, and but again, not necessarily from a perspective that a lot of people had heard from, which had been more
Right.
like simplified or magicalized. It
Mhm.
was, I wasn't doing that. And
Mhm.
and some people are saying to me, look, I'm downloading what you're writing, and I'm keeping it, and I'm reading it. It's really inspiring me, and it's helping me deal with issues. And so I then was actually going to Europe, and on my way to Europe, I had stopped and saw my publisher,
Mhm.
and they're like, I think it'd be great for you to write another book, and can you make it something unique, but also easy to understand and accessible, and kind of where people can open the book essentially anywhere, and they can read a
Yeah.
chapter and go, oh,
More like
wow.
a guide than just a
Mm.
book. Right, right.
And
No, that's
yeah, and I was like, look, well, I've been getting this amazing feedback from all the stuff that I'm posting on social media, so maybe it's something that I can put together. And then it took years and years and years to put together.
it's so much information. And, and even just reading through it, I'm like, I'm going to have to read through this again. And it's not that it's at all complicated. It's very easy. You make it very easy to understand. It's just, you want to kind of take it and really think on it for a while. It isn't just the quick breeze through and whatever, and that's it. So I do love that about it. And it's almost to, you can use it kind of bibliomancy. Like if you're not sure where to start, let the book choose for you.
Well,
You know?
exactly. And I guess, it was, putting it together was kind of like, well, obviously social media was the beginning of the journey,
Yeah.
and posting it, but then I was like, well, how do we put it together in terms of different themes, and what
Mhm.
other themes that but I'm both passionate about it and I want to share with people. And we kind of went on this journey from understanding, where's our education system, and is it telling us the truth? Are we actually being told the truth, or are we being bombarded by things that are essentially making us not think for ourselves? And I
Mhm.
really feel huge, responsibility, and I guess passion around getting people to ask deeper questions,
Right.
getting people to really think for themselves, and to ask questions, like, am I somebody who's a very teachable, open minded person, or have I just been, indoctrinated into a particular ways of thinking? And,
Mhm.
and for example, a lot of people do believe now that they only have one lifetime, as opposed to exploring multiple earth lives, but not just exploring that from the perspective of, there's been a lot of, past life, like, let's look at our past lives, let's
Right,
delve
right.
into that. And as much as that's important to certain degrees, people never talk about the danger of exploring that without, real understandings and guidance, and bringing
Yes.
stuff back from past
It's
lives.
very important. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my biggest question is, well, that's great. We can look at past lives, but how about we actually start looking at the understanding that if there's past lives, there's future lives, and whatever you're doing right now is actually creating the possibility of your future life.
Right.
And let's look at understanding that, it's obvious we have this physical body, but we also have subtle bodies. And how much do you know about that? And when you're in your 20s and even 30s, you kind of, very focused on the physical and just enjoying it and
Yeah.
getting out and doing stuff. But as you get to your late 30s, 40s, you start to go, well, I'm starting to understand that this physical body won't last, but I have these subtle bodies. And rather than being, having this culture of obsession about how do I preserve my physical, which I'm all for looking after yourself, but
Right.
essentially it's like, well, this is temporary. So is there an eternal part of me? And so I felt like there's been a lot of kind of, there is information obviously about subtle bodies, but not deep enough. Never been deep. It's never been deep enough for me from what I had previously found. And so I studied it, because I have the capacity to actually see subtle bodies.
Yeah.
It's been a big study for me for quite a while. And then it was like, well, I remember again in my 20s and 30s, people talking about the soul, spirit, and, and essentially for a while there, they were being confused and they were being put into the same category.
Right.
And I was like, well, is it the same or is it something completely different? And so, again, that kind of took me on this journey of studying it. And, and then, like a lot of other people, I had this belief system of, why do I need to learn about like higher beings like angels or archangels or, archai or even higher up? I just go straight to God. Like I don't need to learn about those
Right,
because
right. Just go to the source. That's it. Why bother with that? Right. Yep. And that is a thing for sure.
right. And then, in again having this teacher that I had, she was like, well, hold on a second. So are you saying that you want to go to university before you go to grade 1? And and are you even capable of going to university before you go to grade 1? She's like, there's so much to learn,
Right.
and there's so much to understand. And if you try and skip everything and go to university, but you don't even know how to read, you don't know how to write, you don't know how to do simple math, but you're trying to study the most complex things, you're not going to understand any of it.
Yeah, you
And
don't
so
have basics down. Right.
yeah, and so that was kind of a big wake up call for me, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, there is so much to understand, there is so much to learn, there's so much to explore that is more of an eternal aspect of us and ways of thinking than temporary, because most people's way of thinking in life is just worrying about how they're going to pay the bills, how they're going to, what they're going to do with their kids, how they're going to get everything done that they need to get done in a day, which I totally get, having
Yeah.
been a mom for, from a very young age.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like there's so much more. And when you delve into, I guess, the deeper understandings of things, you start to feel like, oh my God, I'm more alive. Like you said, I'm more sensitized
Yeah.
because I'm connected to who I really am. And that's such a big question that I really explore, who are you? Can you understand it from all different angles? Are you asking the questions of understanding yourself and
Right.
and
Definitely. Well, and I think too that even by being able to chat, being able to kind of harness your whole self, just in your everyday, you're going to be more productive. You're going to be more fulfilled in what you're doing, and doing it mindfully. And then maybe these things aren't just like you said, just getting through the day. And you can kind of change your own perspective on that too, and make even the simplest interaction a meaningful one too. I feel like when you are more open to all of these other things around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel like, we're at a time where we're kind of being really we're being asked to look deeper. We're being
Mm-hmm.
asked to understand more. And it's also easy to get swept up in all the propaganda, that you see on TV and, on social media, and forget, who you really are. And I feel like this is why we have so much depression, so much anxiety that's happening, so much mental illness, because essentially we don't know who we are. And when we lose track of it, we lose track of ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
and then we have people saying, well, love yourself, but it's like, what does that mean? How does that
Right.
look?
Right.
you
And
know
like, what are you doing? Yeah. Because for me, or even for you, that may look very different. And just, and I know that too, just even online, that like, oh, it's self care and go to take a spa day and go do this. But for some people, that makes them very anxious. And that's not something that makes them feel like they're being taken care of. So I think, like you said, it's just so important to just kind of put all the other stuff aside. And, I mean, I don't know how long it's like the whole imposter syndrome thing. I mean, that wasn't a thing. I guess it was a thing a while. Never had a name, but I feel like now that it's been named, that it almost makes it that much worse. Because if you don't feel like you're doing this, that, or the other thing, or you're trying to just copy everyone, then again, that leads to that depression, that anxiety, that, well, I'm not good enough, and you're missing out on your own experience, which probably looks nothing like the person that you're looking at, hoping that why isn't it going that way? And and I love how you kind of break it all down in your book, and you give exercises and tips, like at the end of each chapter. There's like a little tips and things to do. And you do talk about journaling a lot. So can you just tell us, why do you think journaling is really important in your spiritual practice?
It's a really good question. And I have quite a few journals now, that I work with a few different publishers that they've brought out as well. But journaling to me is really an intimate connection to self, because that is the space where we can really connect and look within. And often we are so bombarded by 1,000 thoughts and 1,000 people's, well, a lot
Like
of
everything.
people's, yeah, ideas. And it's like, in order to be healthy, you've got to digest this. And I spend a lot of time working with people on their health. And I feel like, so you've got to digest your experience, but how do you digest your experience? And really kind of go, what is it that I believe? What is it that I think? Because anytime I share it with somebody, that I'll get their perspective.
Mhm.
But when I'm journaling, it's almost like I'm cleansing my soul, right? I'm
Right.
cleaning it up, and I'm giving myself um, a real opportunity to go, what is it that I think and believe? And, how do I clarify things? But at the same time, and how does the next step of my journey and what it is that I want to experience and explore come from within myself, as opposed to from outside of me, which is so much more empowering. especially
Right.
by the questions that I ask myself. And then there's also that I feel like when I teach people, and I do a lot of teaching, especially online,
Mhm.
I I feel like people need to be conscious and aware of their journey, and that
Right.
they're moving forward. And when you write things down, you can really observe that journey. But also beyond that, I feel like the insights that we have deep within our soul and ourselves only really come towards us as we dig and as we ask deeper questions, and as we
Right.
journal, and so we might have an insight, an intuitive hit or wisdom that comes. And when we write it down, it's like the next bit comes, and the next bit comes, and the next one. But
Right.
if we don't write it down, it's like it's connected to us. We were given that wisdom, but now we've lost it.
Right. Yeah. It's not like organized, focused into whatever you're writing. And, I'm a journaling person myself. And and I always tell people too that when you're writing it down, like on a piece of paper, and I'm really big about like, because people are like, oh, yeah, I'll just journal on my phone. I'm like, no, get a pen and paper. I mean, half the fun is finding journals. I mean, for me anyway. But, when you write it down on the piece of paper too, it makes it real. It's like, then it's like, oh, here are my thoughts. Here are my beliefs. Here are the questions. And they're on this piece of paper outside of me. So now I can look at them from a different perspective and maybe see where it can go. And it's, I always say words are magic, and writing is magic. It's like you're writing your own spell almost in a way, and I think so. I love that you had added that in there too, and with some really good questions. And and I think too, for everyone who's getting the book, definitely don't rush through it. Take your time with it, and really, make sure that you are answering those questions. And I think a big too, that I saw in the book too is just about taking your time and not rushing it, because again, as a society, get it done, get it done. Oh, look, great. Oh, I'm a spiritual person now. But that's not really how it works. And I think that's another thing that people need to be reminded of, that this takes time, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And, in the last 20 years that I've been exploring and teaching and traveling, I've seen so many people who rush things.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is whenever you rush, you crash, right? So eventually there's a crash that happens. And it's like everything that essentially you're doing is more on the surface, as opposed to really bringing it deep within yourself, which is the greatest opportunity we have while we're here on this earth, is to go, hold on, let me take my time to understand, firstly myself, but
Right.
in general, to understand others, to understand my family, to communicate better, to understand my spiritual nature in particular. Why do I need to rush this, as opposed to really deepen my ability to gain insight,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I also find that when people rush, it's almost like they want this band-aid solution. They want the instant hit, the instant miracle.
Right.
And those things don't last. They just don't. So it's
No.
like, why not? And this has been years of discovery, which is, we need to have a foundation. We need to keep creating and working on a foundation that helps us um to deal with to deal with different things in our lives, to help um to help us live fully. and to have great health,
Yeah.
to have great relationships. Nothing that is extraordinary actually happens instantly. You know, you've got to work towards it. You've got to deepen your understanding. And so I feel like, yeah, you know, rushing and just having, again, you mentioned being desensitized by having these, you know, experiences that, and it's like more, you know, from
Right.
yeah, being on social media, as opposed to going, okay, you know, there's things to learn from social media, but how do I then go within and not become numb, you know, not become totally disconnected from myself and everything, but
Yeah.
actually feel the warmth, feel the love, feel the connection, feel the creativity, feel the passion within my own soul.
Right. Right. And, you know, and I think it's important point that you brought up too is like, if you can't be connected to yourself, how can you be connected to others? And that is, again, just missing out on those experiences in a full way. And, you know, it's not all about just checking off the boxes like, oh, this and this. Okay, now you know, I'm fully integrated. And usually, if somebody is coming at you with that, then, you know, it's pretty clear like, oh, okay, nah, you're not really there yet. You know, you need to work on that a little bit. And, you know, really to, you know, and talking about how, you know, just, you know, building your base so that you can experience fully. You also talk about angels in your book and how to connect with them, what they do and what they're there for, because it's not just what is in the movies, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, because and this was, like I said, you know, really an important exploration for me. You know, and I think I do have one of my topics is why not simply connect to God. You know, and you know, I feel like when we really start to understand and honor the spiritual world and honor that, you know, what is, and understand what does an angel actually do. And I know, I feel like a lot of, you know, angels have been portrayed as like magical genies that just will
Right.
do anything you ask them, and this is not the case from my study again into the older mystical kind of, you know, more difficult works, you know, where people had
Yeah.
really
Those
thought
old
about
books.
yeah, what they wrote, and had, you know, just deep, had, I guess, you know, really developed their clairvoyant abilities as opposed to just jumping in and just saying anything. And, you know, and what I learned was that, you know, our, we have an angel that comes with us into our, you know, into every life essentially. And this angel holds our karma, holds the threads, and is constantly trying to communicate with us and give us messages. But because we're
Mhm.
becoming so desensitized, we're not listening, and we're not aware of these messages that guide us through life and guide us towards the right people, the right opportunities, you know, the possibilities of, how to make healthy decisions. And you know, these angels really love us, but they're also, it's the same way that they kind of guide us. They're dependent on us in some ways, because when we're doing things that are following our destiny, our inner journey, and we're, you know, really honoring who we are, we also
Mhm.
honor the angel. But when we're dishonoring ourselves, we actually bring the angel down into more of a darker place.
Right.
So, you know, so we actually have an impact on each other. It's not a one way, experience. And, you know, the angels want us to, I guess, to live our lives fully, to refine our own intuitive abilities, to, you know, to make really healthy choices for ourselves and to nourish our souls.
Yeah, and I think that's so important too. So for people who are listening who maybe have thought about working with angels or really not sure even what to do, before they even start to work with angels, even though they're near you, but to really actively work on them, how can they prepare themselves to make sure that they're ready to receive?
Well, I feel like one of the biggest things is to limit social media. you know,
Right.
limit TV, limit how much time you're getting bombarded, and actually find from other people and from other you know I guess especially from the social media and anything TV related or YouTube, and actually find time alone, find time in nature,
Mm-hmm.
connect to nature, spend time looking at trees and actually bringing yourself back to feeling, as
Right.
opposed to numbing. And then, connect with your heart, start to um, become aware of what's happening there, start to release blockages or negative, limiting, fear based emotions. Um, so, in other words, kind of create a state of being more sensitized.
Mm-hmm.
And through being sensitized, we can start to have more of these beautiful connections.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I love that. And again, it's just going back to the base, going back to the basics, right? And just making space, because we have filled our space with everything going on, like you said, and it's just disconnecting from that. And we can't get messages from them if we have all this other chatter going on. So I love that. It makes complete sense. Definitely. It's
mm,
also one of those things, like, you were saying, like, you're, by honoring yourself, you're honoring them too. And I think that's a really great way to look at it, because people don't think of it that way. They don't tend to look at it that way because of everything else, they've kind of heard around them, and that you need to, devote to them and focus on them and call them and ask them. And it's like, actually, like I said, no, not really. It starts with, so what a great incentive to start working with angels. Like, take care of yourself. Then guess what? You'll be able to receive your messages that you receive. I love that.
well, absolutely, because you'll be sensitized. And the other thing that I think is really important is discernment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important to understand we have black and white, we have night and day, we have good people and people who have an agenda to hurt. We're seeing that, people who only want power and don't care about other people. And in the spiritual world, there's similarities, because essentially we're here to have freedom of choice and to discover, how do we be free and potentially loving human beings, from freedom of choice or not.
Right.
And there are beings, that are spiritual as well, who are not necessarily coming from, a good perspective. And, maybe we can see it as, essentially they're playing a role, but the role that they're playing is, can be damaging to us. And so when we start to understand this, we start to go, well, you know, what would a higher being, how would a higher being connect with me? Would a higher being connect with me when I'm, let's say, weakening my sense of I am
Mm-hmm.
through a particular, taking, particular drug or taking particular thing, because I think that that's going to take me into a spiritual world, for example, which is
Right.
also quite desensitizing. um, and the more we understand that, you know, an angel or an archangel or even an, an archive will connect with you much more if you are the more alive and cleaner and discerning, and the more you act as a good person as well, the less selfish you are, the more understanding, the kinder, the more you can honor divinity and beauty, and take time to meditate and do some prayers and have compassion for other people and all of this stuff, as opposed to I'm just gonna push my way through into the spiritual world, doesn't matter how. And people think often it doesn't matter how I get there, I'm connecting to the higher beings or to the angelic beings, but they're actually not connecting to them at all.
Yeah.
And and this is another thing that I talk about a little bit in the book, about discernment and understanding, and really creating, again, a foundation for yourself, not to be confused, not to be taken advantage of, not to go down the band-aid path of I just want this to happen immediately, instantaneously.
This experience, right?
Mm.
Right. Now, I think that's important too, because to kind of go back to your college analogy, if you want to have this, profound spiritual experience, I mean, you can go ahead and take whatever drug or plant medicine that you want, but that doesn't guarantee it's going to happen. And if you do get something, it's probably not what you think it is. Like you said, because you haven't gone through these levels, so you don't fully even understand it. Or you're seeing all the, maybe for some reason you do get a whole bunch of messages, but then you're done and you're like, all right, well, I got these messages. I don't know what they mean, because you didn't put in the work and you don't know what it means to you. So I think that's really important. And again, it's just the whole not rushing it and taking your time and really trying to understand yourself, so that you are open and you can understand these other things. And in your book too, you talk about, and I know you work with a lot of people with their health. So can you just tell us a little bit how health, your physical health and spirituality are connected?
Well, I just feel like they're fully connected, because when we start to understand that our astral body, which is connected to our soul, is our feeling body. So every desire, feeling, thought that we have, including pain and pleasure, is actually connected to the astral body, which is also part of your bigger, your soul, which with those of us who spend the time refining our spiritual abilities end up seeing it as an aura.
Right.
And the state of your soul and your emotions and how you think about things, and even more than thinking and feeling, it's like my perspective on life, what I truly, how I view life, how what I believe. All of that has such a massive impact on my physical health. So then we have this etheric body, which is the body of a copy of the physical body, and also the body of energy and life force, and holds a lot of our ancestral kind of both traumas as well as gifts and energies and belief systems from our families and so on. And it's also a body of memory. So essentially, when we nourish and understand how to nourish our soul, we start to work with our emotions in a completely different way. We start to befriend our emotions instead of resisting them, hating them, pushing them away. We start to I guess connect with them and work with them, and try and attempt to get wisdom from them. When and I found, and in my previous book, The Secret Language of Your Body, I wrote about how each part of your body is also connected to wisdom or pain, or trauma. And so holds wisdom essentially. And when we start to go, well, hold on a second, if I block my ability to communicate, then I'm going to have problems with my throat and thyroid and neck.
Right.
If I don't want to see things in my life, I'm going to have problems with my eyes. If I carry a lot of resentment and anger and rejection, I'm going to have problems with my heart, with my chest, with my lungs, with my breasts, all sorts of things. And so
Right.
essentially understanding your soul nature, your subtle bodies, which also contain the chakra system. So you have the chakra
Right.
system in the astral body. You also have a chakra system in the etheric, and they're a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you start to understand those things, you start to go, oh, wow, I can deeply influence the state of my health by working with my soul, with understanding things. I personally think that it goes even deeper than just this emotional understanding. I feel like
Right.
unless you start to delve into who you are as a soul spirit and what happens in the spiritual world as well, it's hard to actually understand how to fully live in this world,
Mm-hmm.
because so much of what happens there, and also multiple earth lives, and how what we don't deal with in one life gets essentially transformed into both
Yeah.
destiny and karma, as well as physical health in the next life.
Right. Right.
That has a huge impact on us as well, and our relationships. And so, I feel like everything's connected. So if I just ignore and push away and resist my relationships, I'm gonna have neck problems, I'm gonna have back problems.
Right.
So I kind of feel like everything's really connected.
Yeah, no, I definitely, it does. It definitely like makes sense when you really kind of start, you take a minute to really think about it. And, again, it's kind of like, just like if you want to work with the angels, you have to work on yourself, but it's also the incentive in this aspect to work on these emotions, kind of befriend them, get to know what they are and where they're coming from, so that when you are into the future lives, that you're making it better for yourself then. And I think, that alone, like, okay, that's a good thing. Maybe I should be working on that. I mean, there's multiple reasons why you should, but I kind of like that idea. Like, you know what, let me work on this so the next time around everything's good. And and I think, it's just sometimes, people I think are very afraid to dive into these things, and it just seems like so much work. But I think at even just kind of how you have it broken down in your book too, it makes it easier, it makes it more approachable. It isn't like, oh my gosh, here's all this stuff all at once that I have to do. And that's like even why I was saying before, like, go through the book, take your time with it, and you may be on one chapter for a couple months, who knows, but that's okay, because like in the long run, you're going to benefit from it, right?
Absolutely. And I love that you say that, because when I'm teaching, and I've just finished teaching a 10-day intensive online course about healing. And essentially, I'm saying to people, even though I'm giving you all this information and there's so much to understand, and now it's great that we have the book, because they can go and explore the book. Because they're like, where can I learn more of this? Where can I hear more of it? I'm
Right.
saying, even with all the things you've just gone through in this 10-day course, go slow, go like a turtle,
Yes.
be the turtle,
The
because the
turtle
turtle,
in there, I mean, come on, there we go, more basic stories right there.
right? It's like win the race, create the foundation, and slow down, understand things, kind of whack with stuff that helps you, really kind of allows you to to know the detail instead of generalizations. That's my
Mhm.
other big thing. I feel like we've we have so many things, where we've been so generalized, and if things are generalized, that this is where we get lost and confused. And like you said, if I stay with something, even one chapter for a couple of months, it's almost like I would actually understand the details, and I would actually delve into it, and I wouldn't stay on the surface. I would go deeper into, you know, wow, here's some complexity, here's some wisdom, here's some understanding.
Right, right. And and I think too, I think we just need to also give ourselves some credit. Like, we can do these things. We do have control of our emotions. We can connect with them and feel them and let them go and all of those different things too. And I think that kind of, I guess, goes into that self-care area. You know what? If the only self-care you do today is give yourself some credit, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, even if you just take the moment to um just connect within yourself and
Mhm.
go, oh my God, I'm going to be kind to myself today,
Yes.
um,
Yeah, just that
then
positive self-talk that's a big deal too.
yeah.
For sure, for sure. So now you also have a deck coming out. Could you tell us a little bit about more about that?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'll show it to you.
Yay! I know mine's
Um,
like flying over the ocean or something. I don't have it yet.
and it's so beautiful again, Rockpool, wow, like just the
Yeah, they
presentation.
always do such a beautiful job on their decks. I love, and the boxes, the whole thing. So now tell us what this deck is all about.
So for me, it was like, this is a really kind of special deck because it's quite different, um, experience, because the deck came through pain. I
Mhm.
I had broken up with my ex-husband, who turned out to be quite a, not the loving person that he had pretended to be through the relationship. And, it's been a real kind of wake up call, learning about narcissism and borderline disorders and psychopathy, which he had all of.
Oh boy,
Um,
yeah,
as
yeah.
well as a lot of charm and a way of connecting with people, where it took some time to discover the depth of this, because there was a lot of I want to grow, I want to learn, I've been a victim of my life and so on, and my circumstances, and how can I be helped. And so I feel like a lot of people who want to help get sucked into these types of experiences.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
and I also think it's quite karmic, and, there's a lot to learn about these types of relationships, and I need to learn it. But when we were separating, what I actually found was that, because he had, both of us were doing a lot of spiritual type explorations, and whilst I was trying to do this slowly and in depth, he was doing it like a race car driver would.
So everything we were talking about not to do, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly. So he was doing that, and essentially when we separated, which was a huge blessing for everybody involved, I kind of, I was left with this situation where, for some time, I couldn't go back and do all the, processes that I'd taught people, and all the meditations that had actually nourished and strengthened me. So because I couldn't do them, I was like, what do I do? I need to, and I started really learning about the detriment that people who have these narcissistic disorders do to the people that they've been in relationship with, the
Yeah.
children involved, absolutely everyone and anyone. And I was like,
Yep.
oh my God, I've got to connect to my heart. And
Mhm.
I had this moment, I have to say. And in the moment, I was in the shower and I was crying and, and feeling sorry for myself about how, this person had treated me. And he was pretty horrific at the end and very cruel. And, and the question was, hold on a sec, how did he get to have that power? And he got that power because I gave my heart away to him without thinking, because I was like, oh my God, this is, the perfect person, because that's what they
Right.
pretend to be. I have this passionate love, relationship. And so, yeah, even though I kept, seeing red bell, like red bells and all sorts
Right.
of
Right.
things going
It's the
on.
whole blinded by love thing, and it
Yeah,
happens
exactly.
to all of us.
I honestly had zero concept or a clue about how narcissists worked or what that
Right.
it was. So, you know, yeah, and at the end I was like, well, hold on a sec. It was me who didn't honor my own heart and I gave it away essentially. And that means that I've got to rebuild it. I've got to heal it. And there was a lot to heal because, my heart was, I felt like it was smashed into pieces.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I started by writing these love letters to myself,
Oh, I love that.
to,
Yes.
speaking of journaling, so I had this journal and I was writing, but I was being very specific. And so, I would, write a love letter, kind of like if I opened this to my heart that felt like, it was, for example, betrayed. So, I'll show some images.
Mhm.
So, like, this betrayed heart got this acknowledgement and a
Oh,
letter
yeah.
that
That's
was written
beautiful.
to it. And then I'd write this little, again, healing exercise that I could do to reclaim this betrayed heart. And then, I'd write to my unseen heart. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I would see it and acknowledge it. And then, I um, I was connecting to my healing heart, which was, where I was looking at the shadow and the light aspects
Ooh,
and,
that one's pretty.
facing it, and then I had this forgiving heart, so every day
Yeah.
for quite a while, I would write and then read, about like both the hard aspects, like the rejected heart, but I'd also read about, I'd then go, well, I also have this now beautiful heart that's coming through,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna, write about that. And so anyway, after a while, I started feeling like my heart was really getting healed and strengthened.
No, I love
And
that.
then yeah, and then when I met my present partner, one day I said to him, look, I'm just wondering, what you will think if I read to you one of these stories, of sending love letters to my heart, and if it affects you. And I was like, because you're a man and you don't like feelings.
Perfect. Test it out.
Yeah, it was like a test, and I was like, I want to do something with this because it helped me so much. And I don't know if it should be a book, if it should be a card deck, what it should be. Um, a journal, I don't know. And I was like, can I read it to you? But I feel like it could be an amazing card deck, something that hasn't been done, that
Right.
I haven't seen being done. And he's like, all right, read it to me. And I read it to him, and he had tears, and he was like, I really think, this is profound and this is touching. And I think it's going to help so many people because we all get rejected at some point. We
Right.
all feel abandoned. We all feel hurt. And to actually have, and we want somebody to acknowledge it. And again, we don't always have somebody to acknowledge it. And,
Yeah.
we need to acknowledge it ourselves to heal. And I think that insight that I had, look, I gave my heart away to this person, even though intuitively, my intuition was screaming, no, don't go there.
Right.
But my desire, my heart, my desire for love was going, no, I really want this, and I gave my heart away without thinking, and now I have this opportunity to reclaim my heart and be loving and kind and gentle with it. And so, and I feel like there's so many hard issues that people have as well because they're so disconnected because of
Yeah.
this hurt. And so I really felt like creating a card deck that allowed people to connect to different aspects of their heart and actually go and ask that question, which part of my heart do I need to look at now? And it could be trusting heart, like, you need to listen to your inner wisdom, or, it could be intuitive heart, stepping into your true destiny. So not all of these cards, again, so beautiful. Jenna did.
Jenna does. Oh, she's just wonderful artist. Yeah. So when are coming out?
So I actually heard from my publisher recently, and they said people are so excited already about this. We actually need to bring it forward.
All
because
right.
they come out, I think, in August, but now apparently they're coming out in July because there's been this demand for heart healing.
Yes. No, I love that, and I think too, like, when people are going through these things, they don't know where to start, and grab the deck and just pull a card, and that's where you start. And I love that. I think that's definitely something that can be a helpful tool for a lot of people, no matter what they're going through. Is if it has something to do with how they're feeling and how they want to present even to the world, like, what do I need to work on? What do I need to tap into? I love that. Yeah. And you know what? We're actually up to an hour already. So I do not want to cut off. It's like already, yeah. Yeah, I just froze. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, it's got to an hour and freezing on me. So I feel like we could on and on, but I really love that you came on today, and I think we really gave a lot of great information, and everybody, you can definitely order the book. Can you tell everyone where to find you if they'd like to work with you?
Hopefully people can hear that. The best thing, where people can find my work is on my website, innasegal.com. And we're constantly doing free events. Are we? Are we frozen now?
Let me see what's happening. No freezing. Oh no. You were frozen for a second. Go ahead.
Okay. So the best way is for people to go to innasegal.com and also join our e-newsletter, because we do a lot of free online classes and lots of podcasts and teachings, as well as live and obviously books and cards and things and journals that are showing, coming out, showing up. So that's probably the best way to connect, as well as, even though we say limit your time on social media, but I am on Facebook and Instagram, and it's
I can hear you. Your little, I don't know what's going. I think we have too much energy happening and we're just busting the things. Oh no. Let's see. Well, either way, I'm going to be definitely linking all of things down in the comments, and I will go ahead and also put it in the post